live time. Hopefully the tech things worked out. I think I got it, guys. Gonna try to hit some stuff very succinctly. I don't think this is a big week in the sense of a must win. A lot of talk this week is Tua bad? Who said bad things about Tua? And I just think, we have to win. To me, the big games are Patriots game coming up and a Chiefs game. AFC East opponent, AFC. If we win this game, it's huge. If we lose this game, depending on how we lose it, obviously injuries. For most part, the loss is not that much. So I want to cover the key things. For me, the biggest thing this week, and I've been struggling all week with this, was under the weather last week. The kids all got sick. I'm still under the weather. But it was a tough week for me because, hey, Joe, what's going on, brother? What's going on after a few drinks? I could use some, man. I'm wiped out, man. But this is like a final stop for my evaluation. My evaluation is I'm not high on Eichenberg. I'm not high on Lamb in run blocking. I'm not high in Jackson. I think Jackson's about average. I think this all offensive line struggles until you have Connor and Tehran. And I'm hoping still Connor gets in. But if this offensive line produces this week, like everybody's kind of saying, it's time for me to reevaluate my evaluations. But conversely, if things don't work out, I'm wondering how people are going to respond. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes into this game. It's not really easy to figure out because there's, if Connor's not in, that's a big deal. Blankenship, the safety, not in for Eagles is not a big deal. It opens the doors for both team strengths. Miami going vertical, creating the big play is definitely enhanced by the loss of Blankenship. But if Connor's not in, it's going to enhance this pass rush of the Eagles. I don't think people really understand what they're going to see this week. And that's why I say I will have to say I am wrong, or for mea culpas and everything else, 2-9, because if they can handle what they're facing this week, then there's nothing else you can say. There is really nothing else you can say. Now, if we fail this week, it's not to say we're doomed and the offensive line stinks, because if Connor's not in and Tehran's not in, that changes a huge deal. Plus, you don't have Achane. But still, you're going to see this week some stuff, and I'm going to show you a whole host of data I created to kind of lay the framework out for this so you can keep your eyes on it going into this week. So I'm going to be very succinct. I'm going to show you. I went through a bunch of games, and these are the games as comps that I came to the conclusion. Now, Eagles played Minnesota Vikings. You might look at their record and say, but they've got two good receivers. They've got one heck of an offensive line. And Cousins, he can play. And that was a 34-28 win. I get the feeling that could be one thing where Miami gets 34 and Eagles get 28, or the opposite. But then if you look at the Rams, to me, their offensive line's a comp to our offensive line. They've got three really good receivers, and they've got a quarterback who can play. And then you see the Eagles here were able to control that. And I'm going to go through deeper stats after this, but it was a 23-14 loss. I don't see us having this kind of game where I just can't see us putting 14 points on, So this is one of the least viable that I think. But then you got the Los Angeles Chargers, the 36-34, where we won it. And that's the one I'm kind of keeping my eye on the most if Connor's in. Connor's not in, I'm kind of going maybe more towards the Rams possibly, or the Vikings, or this Bills outlook of where we get beat 48-20. Now, if Eichenberg steps up like everyone believes, then this goes out the door. And that's where I'm going to have to do my mea culpas. So I'm going to get into some more graphics to show you what the time to throw, the pressure rates that the opponents that the Eagles saw and what they were able to do it to them. I'm going to show you the Dolphins against the Bills, what the pressure rate was, the time to throw, and all that stuff to try to create comps. Now, if you don't notice Eagles defense, they've got holes now, obviously, in their secondary, but it's not as bad as you think. That's the one I want. So when you look at the Eagles, they've got Sweat, Davis, Cox, Reddick. They've got Graham. They've got Jalen Carter. They've got Morrow, the linebacker who can blitz. These guys are deep, deep on the edges. They're deep in the middle. And that rotation that they are able to bring wears offensive linemen out. If you don't understand, the offensive linemen, in a pass game, they have to react. That's a disadvantage for them. The defender gets to attack, but it is more tiring for the defender. And that's why when you evaluate a pass rush, you got to ask yourself, what's the depth? Lack of depth can really hurt a top-end unit because they can get tired. But this unit has it all. So it's going to be very, very, if Lamb and Wynn and Eichenberg or Connor, Hunt and Jackson handle this group, I would say, and we win this game, it's Super Bowl bound. Now, this graphic that I got here, you'll see season SEA time to throw for the team that I'm going to be talking about. The team, what their time to throw was against Philly, the pressures they had against Philly, the sacks, and the yards per attempt. And there's correlation here. It's not definitive, but there is a correlation. So Minnesota, their offensive line is doing a tremendous job. You got to go check them out. I'll show you right here quick. You can see them in a purple. I'm using PFF grade, just the easiest thing to do here. But this is a quality offensive line, so we have to take that into consideration. Now, they had time to throw 2.7, but against Philly, it dropped 13.13 seconds. And Cousins was pressured 17 times with 2 sacks. Now, his attack was 8.8 yards, which is very in the ballpark for us. And so there is a comp here for what Minnesota likes to do, how they were able to protect in a lot of ways. And that's why I kind of translated to sort of what the Dolphins are kind of like and how they might represent themselves against the Eagles. And that's why I got the 34-28 score. Now, I don't know. This is a really good offensive line. And they still had 17 pressures with 2 sacks. But we've got to see. We have different assets than this team. And this is why the run game, I think, is going to be critical. So then the Jets, you saw them last week. They didn't have Carter. Their time to throw is 2.92. It was 2.62, 0.30 seconds less, 15 pressures, 5 sacks. But they had a very short 5.6 yards per attack, but they only have one real wide receiver, no quarterback. So you really couldn't put much stock in that. But I did like the comp with Minnesota. Now, another comp is the Rams, who I think is a really great comp for us. If you look at their offensive line, you can see here, you got Jackson, Avila, Shelton. These guys kind of, you know, if you look at, you see us below there, you can see Wynn and you can see Eichenberg and Jackson. These guys kind of fill a comp for that. Dotson, he's number 1 right guard in the league. Maybe you could say he's like a Hunt, and Haverstein's a top a tackle. You could maybe put him in for Lamb. So I kind of like the comps on that for the offensive line protection. Guys, I'm under weather, so I'm kind of putting this information out. So I hope I'm not moving too fast. If I'm moving too fast, just let me know. So the Rams, they've got some really good talent. Their time to throw was 2.54. Against Philly, it dropped to 2.26. And they were sacked 16 times. And pressured 16 times and had 4 sacks with his 6 yards per attempt. And so that is my concern, is if you're getting 16 pressures and 4 sacks at 2.26, the Dolphins are averaging, hit the like button. That helps, guys. It's been a long week for me. So I appreciate all the good mojo you can give. So if we're averaging 2.31 time to throw, this puts us in a jeopardy zone if they're able to create that kind of pressure at 2.26. Now, I think a lot of that, when you go back and look at the game, is they were just trying to get the ball out quick and stuff like that. So it's not an absolute, but it shows that if you're getting the ball out that quick, they can still kind of get to you. And when you look at their defense, it is very similar to what we have. And it's got the two narrow D tackles in the 2-eye and the 3 technique, and the 2 guys out in the 5, but they got way better linebackers over the top. And they're going to force us to run in that B gap. They're going to contain a lot of this edge stuff that we like to do. At least they've historically been able to do that. If they can't, they're screwed. But they're going to put themselves in this situation, kind of like what Fangio has done. You're going to see a mirror in a lot of ways what Fangio does and what these guys do. So the run game is going to be critical, but it's going to be in that B gap. And that's going to put pressure on Connor. It's going to put pressure on, not Connor. It's going to, Connor's in there. Eichenberg and Wynn and Lamb. I like Hunt there. If Connor was in, I really like our opportunities with them two working together, because if you can get that B gap run, that's going to mess them up, kind of like what you see has happened to us. So then New England, I mean, obviously they're not a good team. They had a ripped up offensive line. Our offensive line's way better than when Philly played them week 1. But they would tell season time to throw is 2.43. They got it out 2.38, 18 pressures, 2 sacks. That's not something I really want, but it's that they still are able to generate heavy pressure very, very quickly. And when you look at the matchups, I'll get into that in just a second on how they generate it, because they have 4 guys. All 4 of those guys can stress an offensive line. And so then they can dial up the matchups when they want, as well as bringing that blitz. Now, the one oddball in this was the time to throw with Seattle, 2.92. It was even higher. So they had more time to throw, 2.99, but they still had 19 pressures and 5 sacks, and yards per attempt was 7.1. But this is look at the pressures they've generated all season. Look at the sacks they've generated all season. That is very, very, very serious. And when you go back to the Buffalo game, which is the anomaly, the one where we had problems. I mean, we had a little bit of problems with Chargers, a little bit. We had a little bit of problems with the Patriots, but we kind of destroyed everybody else. But the one that really we had heavy pressure problems was Buffalo, and that's the one we got beat badly. It was a 29% pressure rate, where they were able to generate 5 hits, 12 pressures on only 7 blitzes. And that's the key. They only blitzed 7 times. That means for the entire day, practically, they were bringing 4 and dropping 7 to coverage. And that's why it was a little harder for Tua to go through his reads. Now, we got 4 sacks on that day. And the Bills front that day is inferior to what we're seeing. Okay, hold on a second. Veneer, I'm probably not saying it right. I really feel we will contain a lot of what they are going to want to do. The Buffalo prepared them for this game. To me, they practiced that with Carolina. Well, that's going to be an evaluation. My take would be, and it's just an evaluation. If I'm wrong, it's not a personal thing or anything. If you look at Carolina's talent, it's, it would be trying to judge the Jets passing attack and then saying, well, a team was prepared for our passing attack. It's like literally that night and day. I mean, with the Panthers, you had one D lineman, Brown, who's pretty good. And then you had a linebacker, and that was it. And they were gutted on the safeties. This team is loaded, brother. I mean, this is a real serious. This is the best defense we've faced by a long shot. They've had some problems in their coverage, no doubt, and that's where we could take advantage. And this is how it's not like we can't win, even with Eichenberg, because points are going to be at the premium. Without Blankenship, you've got Hill and Waddle and Claypool, and you got the Chosen and Berrios. If we can get those big plays and put the points on, it's going to change the game. But it's going to be a classic matchup of the passing attack and then the front, the pass rush front. And this offense is going to be a tough offense for us to contain as well. And so, you look at Tua's time to throw 2.31. You check at all the pressures at a 2.50 seconds is where the sacks have all come from. And so if they're able to boost, to slow us down, and remember, what you've been seeing in Fangio's defense, you're going to see with this team. Now, Blankenship's not out. Huge loss. Huge. He is an unbelievable guy in coverage, and it's going to stress their over the top very, very much. But Darius Slay is a guy that's, in sort of the ballpark of speed of 4.36, and you're going to have mixed match zones. So you're going to, now Tua's seeing this because he goes against the Miami defense, and that's great news. But there is going to be a little bit of delay in the reads because you're going to see man going, a receiver covered man running through zones. There's going to be, that's how they get some of this delay. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to see if we can. To me, it's going to be about the big play. I don't know if we're going to get the runs that people think. If Connor was in, I like the B gap chances, especially with Wilson coming back. That's how I say it. Yeah, I get that, but we have not been healthy on the O-line. But I think where we will eat them alive is in a run game and sideline to sideline. Maybe, because this defense it purposely tries to take away all your edge stuff. You're going to have two guys. You got Sweat and Reddick, and then you also have I can't remember the guy's name. He's pretty good. They're going to be out in that 5 technique, out on the outsides of the tackles, and they're going to kind of dare you in some ways to run in that B gap. And if you see a lot of the stuff that teams try to run on us, we're able to kind of slow that edge stuff. We have problems inside because you have those 2 tightish DTs and then the wide ends. And there's that gap inside with the linebackers over the top saying, this is where I'm going to allow you to run. Punish me until you make me come out of it, until I have to blitz and stuff. And so if we can run to the edge, then forget it. I mean, we're going to win. But I don't know because there's a lot of techniques that I've been seeing. I wanted to post this week, but I was so tired from the Dolphins. But I'm also seeing those techniques with the Eagles. How the edge guy, whether it's the linebacker, like a lot of times you'll see a lot of our big runs, that edge guy who's on the outside, his first move's inside, and then he gets to cut from the side. He gets chipped, and then that opens up the pocket. But what you're seeing with our guys, Chubb did it last week beautifully. I have the film. I wish I could get up there. And then the Eagles, their first move is back and then vertical, horizontal. And so it creates, if the Eagles, hey, Stay, what's going on? If the Eagles commit to taking away the outside, then the middle of the field will be open. You can only take, that's it. And that's why the B gap runs. And that's why I like Mostert a lot. And I like Wilson being back. I do like that. That's why I do see a sort of a high scoring game, because if we could do that, then you're going to see this is how you hurt this team. But now it's going to come down to this is where you're going to see the evaluation where I'm wrong or I'm right. Lamb, Wynn, and Eichenberg. I'm still hoping Connor. Those 3 guys are going to have to move people, and they're going to have to move them inside. And if they can do that, and I'm not really high on their ability to do that, but it's my evaluation. I'm hoping I'm wrong. But if they're able to do that, then that's going to change my evaluation of them, and it's going to open everything up. We have to run. Now, if you look at Philly, the problem is Philly's offense consumes clock. And so we're going to have to be very, very efficient. Let me see that. I get that, but their CBs will sub. Yes. No, yeah, we're going to put points on. That's why I think we're going to put points. but I think they're going to put points on too. And then in the process, does their pressure get to us? We're going to put points on us. You're not stopping us from putting points on, but you're going to get the points and then get the pressure. And then the pressure is going to create problems creating the points. So it's going to come down. And this is why the run game is going to be critical, because if you can run the football, you're going to limit their opportunities to generate pressure. But remember, a couple of weeks ago, they were saying, I think it was Carolina, they want to stop that first down run. And so this is the number 3 run defense in the league. And so if they're able to slow that run down and put us off schedule, then you're going to run into problems. And that's what I'm trying to get to. And so I do think we're going to put points on. I do. If we lose to 2 quality teams we have played, then yeah, but I disagree with that. I disagree with that. Yeesh. Sorry about that, guys. Had a power surge over here. Am I back?